Good afternoon, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of Classically Modernly Retelling of Classic Fairy Tales. The point of this series is taking 200-year-old fairy tales and putting them into modern language so that everybody can understand what the heck they're talking about. Today we're going to be talking about the story Little Brother and Little Sister. Now this story begins with two children, only ever named Little Brother, Little Sister. The story starts with the little brother taking the little sister by the hand and saying, "Hey, life sucks. Our stepmother keeps beating us, she's an evil woman, let's run away." Which, you know what? Good for him. Getting out of a bad situation, I'd want to run away too. So they do. And they run off into the wilderness. They run through the forest, they run through fields, they run through stony places is what they call it. Until finally they find a hollow tree and they go to sleep. And when they wake up, it's already afternoon and they're hot in their tree, so they get up and the brother's like, "Man, I'm really thirsty. I think I hear a brook. Let's go get a drink." So he takes the sister by the hand, and they go off to find the brook and get a drink. Now, unbeknownst to them, they were followed by their wicked stepmother, who was also a witch. Now, the witch had known that they were running away and decided, "I'm going to make them miserable and murder them." And what she did was she bewitched all of the brooks in the forest. So when they finally found a brook, the little brother went up to the brook and just said, "Oh man, I'm really thirsty," bent down to take a drink, but the little sister heard the brook as it was running, and it didn't make a regular babbling brook sound. Rather, it said, "Hey, if you drink from me, you're going to become a tiger," because that makes sense. Drink from me and you're a tiger. So the little sister stops the little brother and says, "Please don't drink from this water. You'll turn into a beast and eat me." The little brother says, "Okay, fine, I'll wait until the next brook, but I'm really thirsty." And so they go off, and they find another brook. They get to the second brook, the little brother's like, "Finally, I'm dying of thirst." Bends down to take a drink, but the little sister heard how this one was running again. This one also was not babbling like a brook, but it said, "Hey, if you drink from me, you're gonna be a wolf." So the sister said, "Please don't drink from this water either. If you drink from it, you'll become a wolf and you'll eat me." So then the brother was like, "Fine, I won't drink from this one, but I'm dying over here. The next brook we find, I don't care what you say, I'm drinking." The sister was like, "Okay." So they go off and they find another brook, and finally the little brother stops, kneels down, and takes a drink. This one said, "Hey, if you drink from me, you'll become a roebuck. You'll become a deer." So she tries to stop her brother, saying, Don't drink from this. If you drink from this, you'll turn into a deer and you'll run away." But the brother, he was too thirsty. He's already just gorged himself on this water, and the second the first drop touched his lip, he turns into a deer. And so she's sad and crying, he's sad and crying. He didn't run away. He's still there. So that's good. They have each other. And what she did was she took off her girdle and used it as a collar on the deer, and she plucked some plants, made a little lead, and started walking around with her deer brother. And they just wandered in the woods until finally they found an abandoned house. Looked in it, looks empty, looks abandoned, no one lives here, we live here now. Because that's how property works. If it's abandoned, it's yours. And they live there for many, many years. The sister goes out, gathers food for herself, and plucks fresh grass for her dear brother. And they just spend their lives there until one day, the king of the country, why is it always the king? Every fairy tale, it is the king of the country that comes down and does something. Why is the king in every story? Why is the king so active? Anyway, so the king of the country is having a great hunt and is off in the forest. There are dogs, there are horsemen, there are huntsmen, there's a loud bugle. It's a big old thing. They're doing a hunt. The dear brother hears the hunt and thinks to himself, "Man, I gotta get out there." Which is crazy. Why do you want to get out there? You're a deer. They are hunting you. Stay where it's safe. But he's like, "No, I gotta get out there. I gotta be a part of that. I gotta run around. I gotta do things. I gotta be a part of the hunt." And the sister, reasonably, was like, "Please don't." Brother was like, "I gots to." So the sister was like, "Okay, you can go, but come back by evening. If the streetlights are on and you're not back, you're going to be in trouble. And when you come back, knock on the door and say, 'Little sister, let me in. It's me, your brother. That's your password. If you don't say that, I'm not opening the door, because I don't want these strange men, these huntsmen, coming in my house. And the brother was like, that's fair. Cool, we can do that. The sister was like, okay, open the door and let him out. And he went out and he ran around, he taunted the huntsmen. They never caught him, they never hurt him, and he was fine. He had a great time. And he comes back, he knocks on the door, says the password, and he's let in. The next day, they're hunting again. He hears the hunt and says, I gotta go out again. The sister was like, alright, it's the same deal as yesterday. Go out, do your thing, come back before the streetlights are on, or you're gonna be in trouble, and don't forget your password. Brother was like, cool. So she opened up the door, he ran out, and now he's doing his thing. He's taunting the huntsman, he's running around doing his thing, but this time he gets hurt. One of the huntsmen clips his foot. Now, it's not a serious wound, but it's enough to where he's limping and not running. But he does eventually get home. He gets in. The sister is freaking out because he's bleeding everywhere. He's been hurt. So, cleans off the foot, bandages it as best as she can, puts herbs on it, which is basically old-timey medicine, trying to make it better. Now, unbeknownst to them, one of the huntsmen followed the deer back to the cottage, heard the password, saw what happened, and took that information back to the king. And the king said, alright, we're doing another hunt tomorrow. So the next day comes. Now, the wound on the brother was so minor, so slight, that by morning he didn't even feel it. He was fine. He was just being a little baby the night before. But when the hunt started again, he said, alright, I gotta go. It's time for the hunt. I gotta do the thing. I gotta be a part of it. The sister, however, said, nah, you got hurt yesterday, they're gonna kill you this time if you go out. And he's like, no, it's fine, they can't touch me. Can't touch none of this deer boy. And the sister was like, no, I'm not opening that door. And then the brother got all melodramatic and said, fine, I'll stay, but I'll die of grief. And then the sister said, you know what, fine, you want to go that bad? Go. Opened up the door, and he said, thank you, and went. Now the king, when he started his hunt, told his huntsman, alright, look for the deer with the golden collar, don't hurt it, but chase it all day. Don't hurt it. And the huntsmen were like, cool, and they did that. They did just that. The deer brother went out, taunted them, did his thing, ran around, never got touched. Meanwhile, the king went to the cottage, knocked on the door, said the password, stepped inside. The sister was terrified, but the king, he was very kind, he was very proper with the girl. Now, it's worth noting that the little brother and little sister, they've been living here for years. They're not little kids anymore. So when the king walks in, it's not a little girl he sees the most beautiful young lady he has ever laid eyes on. One look at her, and he says, do you want to come back with me to the castle and be my wife? Naturally, the sister says, yeah, alright, to this strange man who previously terrified her by walking in place of her brother. She does, however, provide one stipulation, that the deer's gotta come with me. Like, if that deer doesn't come with me, I'm not going. And the king says that is absolutely fine. The deer can come with you and be with you as long as you like. You and the deer shall not want for anything. Never bothers telling the king that that is her brother. Probably a good move, because that might make her seem crazy. But anyway. So they go back to the palace. The brother lives there. He plays around in the gardens all day. The sister and the king, they get married. They have a great time. She's now the queen. The brother's got a palace garden to play in. Everybody's happy, and they live for a very long time very happily. But you remember the stepmother from the beginning of the story? Well, she's not too happy when she finds out that those children that she tried to kill so many years ago are not only alive, but better off than she has ever been. So she meets up with her daughter, and her daughter says, man, she's queen? I want to be queen. The stepmother is like, it's okay. We'll handle this. We'll get you there. It's fine. We're still going to kill them. So the stepmother and the daughter go off into the palace, and they wait. Eventually, the sister has a child. She gives birth to a son on the night that the king happens to be out on another hunt, because this king really likes hunting. for some reason. I guess there's just not a lot to do. It's fine. So she's laying in bed. She has just given birth. The baby's in the nursery. She's alone. Then the stepmother comes in disguised as a maid and says, I have made you a bath. You should come quickly while the water's hot. It'll help you feel better, help you get your strength back. And the sister's like, you know what, you're right. I'll come with you. We'll get a bath done. And is led to the bathroom by the stepmother. Once in the bathroom, in the bath, the stepmother leaves quickly. Unbeknownst to the sister, there was a fire built in the bathroom so hot that it suffocated the sister. The stepmother then took her daughter back to the queen's chambers and made her look like the queen. Laid her down and said, okay, you stay here and it will be fine. It'll be fine. Just don't let the king see your bad eyes. It's fine. Eventually the king came back, heard he had a son, and was so happy, went off to the queen's chamber. Before he could get in there, however, the stepmother called out and said, oh, you don't want to go in there yet. She can't really see the sun. She can't really see the light. She's really weak. She needs to rest. And so the king was like, well, fine, I guess, and went away. Now, meanwhile, in the nursery, there was a nurse there sitting with the newborn baby, just hanging out. And in the corner of the nursery was where the brother's little bed was set up, and he was sleeping in there too. Now, in here walks the queen, like the proper queen, who is dead, comes up, doesn't say a word, walks over to the baby, hangs out with the baby for a minute, walks over to the brother, pets the brother's back, and then leaves. Does this for a couple of nights. Now, after this first night, the nurse goes out and says, hey, did anybody come through the door last night? She asks this to the guards, and the guards are like, no, it's been a quiet night. Nobody's come, nobody's gone. And so the nurse was like, cool. Doesn't say a word. Eventually, after several nights of this, the queen looks at the nurse and says, so how's my baby doing? How's my dear doing? I'm only going to come here 2 more times, and then I'm never going to be seen again. And then, without another word, hangs out with the baby for a second, pets the brother, and then leaves. The nurse didn't say a word to her, because it's polite to ignore questions. And then this time runs off to the king and explains what's been happening the past several nights. The king's like, that's weird. I'm going to go. So the next night, the king's in there in the nursery with the nurse and the baby and the brother. And at midnight, the queen walks in again and says, how's my baby? How's my brother? I'm only going to show up 1 more time and then never again. The king doesn't say a word, and the queen does what she's been doing, hangs out with the baby for a second and pets her brother and then leaves. The next night, the king's there again, and she's all like, how's my baby? How's my brother? I'm not showing up again. This is the last time. The king couldn't help himself and said, you're my wife, right? And then she says, yes, I am your wife. And then out of nowhere, becomes flesh again, is alive again, because that's all it takes is a little bit of recognition to come back from dying. Which, by the way, how did he not know that she was dead? What happened to the body? The story never says what happened to her body. Just that she suffocated in the bathtub because of a fire. Anyway, so she comes back to life in the nursery. The king finds out what's going on from her. She tells the story. He's like, hey, that old stepmother, that old lady who's been acting like a maid, yeah, she murdered me. And the lady you thought was me is actually an evil little stepsister. So go deal with that. And the king takes them, throws them before a judge, and the judge says, alright, you, off into the wilds, beasts will handle you, to the stepsister. And says to the stepmother, says, alright, we don't deal with witches, you gonna go get burned. Throws the witch into a fire, and when the witch burns up, the curse on the brother breaks, and he becomes a proper person again. It's great. And then they all live happily the rest of their lives. It's great. And that is the story of Little Brother, Little Sister, casually, modernly retold. I hope you've enjoyed and found some meaning in it.